My name is Philip Johnson. If you'll listen closely in the background, you will hear my lovely wife providing musical accompaniment to this video. And she's now shooting daggers at me. She's working on music for this weekend. But to be honest, as an introduction, I don't actually engage in my current context in any formal or really even informal counseling. So the number of hours spent each week is minimal. My role at our local gathering is to essentially help the pastor through preaching and teaching, developing discipleship programs and curriculums to help with people. And I would say if I do any counseling, it's primarily done when I'm teaching or preaching. And through that avenue, the type of clients I would work with to go along with the assignment would be the congregation or someone connected to our church or our pastor, or perhaps my wife and I in our circle of relationships if somebody needed help. As far as an ethical introduction, this class has made me think about that quite a bit more than I had in the past, because I've never looked at myself as a professional or thought of myself as offering something beyond friendship or the need to think more deeply about it. But I would probably say a big thank you to Brother Bernard for what he produced for us, and I adapted for my informed consent. I adapted what he did, and that is what I would use and will use going forward if I engage in a more in-depth manner of counseling. And I would open with that I offer biblical counseling. I don't offer professional counseling in the secular sense, and any counseling or advice that I have is based on biblical principles and from my own walk and experience with living for Christ. And with the caveat that they would know up front that anything said to me is kept in confidence, with the one exception that the pastor would need to be informed as well, if not on the particulars, at least to the enough that they would know that we had talked about something. And if there was, and then you can see in the informed consent that I upload kind of how that would be outlined. When I think about 2 to 3 areas of concern that from the readings, and really it was the idea of informed consent, the importance of it. I had not really considered that. I've been very informal in my approach to ministry. I don't even have a title at church. Most of the people at my church just call me Philip. I'm the guy that wears the Goonies shirt to church. So I am not used to being thrust into a formal position. But thinking about informed consent and how not just how it's something that can cover me legally, but framing it in such a way that they understand that they are being treated with importance and dignity. I think I found that pretty valuable, and it's something I'm going to work with and try to develop a little bit more. And then the other bleeds into the 5th point that we're supposed to talk about, which is record-keeping practices. So far I've mentioned that my approach, or at least my context, has not been very formal, and so I would have to say I don't have any record-keeping practices right now. I have had a few times that my wife and I have counseled or dealt with people that was a little more in-depth than your after the service conversation, where we've met at our home and had in-depth conversations about some serious matters. And I did not think really to take any kind of notes or follow-up. That is something that I will probably change going forward. And I'm already a journaler, so I journal quite a bit. And I think adding this, so when I talk with people, to record what's said for my own benefit and for their future benefit, to have that idea that, hey, this is what happened. I mean, I just recently pulled off the shelf a journal from 15 years ago, and it was amazing to read my own writing, the depths of despair and the victories and the valleys and the consistent faithfulness of God. And having those records for others could be of benefit. As far as the name of it and a relationship to the person who would serve as my counseling supervisor, I have two people. First would be my pastor, Pastor Terry Munn. I select him because in my context, most counseling or biblical advice that I would give would fall underneath his leadership. And so that is why he would be the most ethical person for me to choose. And then the other is a friend and a member of our church, Patrick Dotson, who is a licensed counselor in the area and actually serves as a supervisor for a counseling, I think through Mercy Hospital here in the area. And his qualifications and his licensure and his experience, I think, would make him an ethical choice as someone that I can bounce ideas off of. I've already, with this class, I've already talked to him several times and said, hey, what do you think about this? What are some of the legal things or the ethical things I should be aware of in this scenario? And he's already been helpful in that facet. So I am pretty much, when it comes to counseling for this class from a professional standpoint, I am a fairly blank slate, and I don't really have a lot to offer beyond I'm just learning this, and I have no idea what direction my life's going to take. I've been interested in psychology and philosophy for a long time, so some of the ethical concerns that were brought up are things that I had already read, and working in healthcare, in the medical field, a little bit familiar with HIPAA and ethical policies, as we're constantly having to do modules online that remind us to be ethical and to be aware of HIPAA in particular, and informed consent. I was aware of that from a medical standpoint, but never thought about it from a biblical counseling standpoint. So that is what I have to offer thus far. Look forward to the peer reviews.